guys, Annabelle here from Horizon Cosplay, and today we are looking into one of my favourite comic book series of all time, the DC superhero Bombshell Girls, and specifically my cosplay for DC Bombshell Mera. Now, I promise you guys that I do actually own every single one of the Bombshell comic books. However, as all my stuff is currently packed away in boxes, I'm not 100% sure where they are. Otherwise, I'd get them out to show you. So, before we talk specifically about this costume, let's talk a little bit about the series. The original DC Bombshells were actually models created to represent the 1940s pin-up girls. However, these models proved so popular that it spawned not one, but two whole comic book series, where the DC Bombshell Girls guard the home front during World War II. Now, honestly, my first choice for a Bombshell cosplay was actually Bombshell Batwoman, closely followed by the Bombshell version of Poison Ivy. Yes, I know, I've done an awful lot of Poison Ivy cosplays. How many? Probably too many, and most of them, to be honest, aren't even finished. But what can I say? She's a character that just really kind of speaks to me. However, I wandered into Spotlight one day and saw this scale fabric here, and knew immediately that Mera was going to be the first Bombshell cosplay I ever completed. Also, Mera has an amazing, and to be honest, probably the best story throughout the Bombshell series. Plus, she has a pair of really cool dolphins that pull her in a sea chariot as if she were King Triton from The Little Mermaid. Now, I won't say any more because there is no way that I won't divulge spoilers, but damn Kazam, she is one kick-ass lady, and I highly respect that. So anyway, let's begin. So firstly, for this outfit, I brought McCall's pattern 7398 by Yaya Han, and honestly, I hated it. On the pattern, the whole thing looked lovely, but in reality, the body proportions, for me in particular, were just a complete disaster. And even on the smallest boob setting, they were way too big. Not to mention the fact that every time the size went down, it almost went down. Like, here's an example. There would be a 2 centimeter gap between size 14 and 12, a 1.5 centimeter gap between size 12 and 10, a 1 centimeter gap between 10 and 8, and a 0.5 centimeter gap between 8 and 6, which makes no sense because surely sizes should go down in an equal amount. Anyway, the point is, it was very difficult to work with, and I would not recommend, and I definitely will not be using that pattern again. So, as we modern girls do, I turned to the internet for help in trying to make this pattern fit my body, only to find a literal Facebook group full of people who hated this pattern as much as I did at this point. Though the one really good thing about this Facebook group, as well as totally ripping this pattern apart, was it also contained a list of ways and techniques that you could use to fix it. To be honest, I nearly completely redrafted this pattern. It's very close to being an Annabelle original as such. However, I'm still not 100% happy with the outcome, mostly because I think I was still basing it on the designs from the old pattern. At some point, I definitely need to make my own one of these from scratch so that it actually fits me properly. But onto the fabric, and for this one, let's start on the inside. The inside is made of some kind of quilting or curtain material that I found for $1 a meter at a charity shop. I brought all 3 meters of the stuff, and most of that went into making mock-ups or the lining for this outfit. One reason I really wanted to use this as a lining for this outfit is because it shows a bunch of mermaids and mermen playing with dolphins and various other fish, and I thought that kind of went with the Mera Atlantean theme. It even features a very happy starfish and a very happy snail, and to be honest, the whole thing just made me smile, and it does every time I go to put this outfit on. Next, we should talk about the boning. This was actually the first cosplay I'd ever used boning in, and because it was my first time, I went for the cheap of cheap stuff, so really horrible plasticky things. I mostly did this because of budget, but I also had some real concerns that if I ordered metal boning, it just wouldn't be flexible enough for how I wanted to wear this costume. Not to mention, with all the pattern trouble I had, I wasn't confident it was going to come out looking very good, and I didn't want to pay out for such expensive boning when the end product could very well have to be scrapped. In the end though, this costume did come out okay, and though it may not be perfect, at least with plastic boning it is very comfy to wear. Next, we have the front of the outfit. This is actually made of a poplin fabric, and as you guys can probably see, I went with a much more blue palette than the original Mera wears. I'd honestly just done so many green cosplays at this point that I really wanted to change the colour, and Mera's ball gown in later comic books had me feeling rather inspired. So I went with that colour palette instead. Actually, fun fact here, when I brought this poplin fabric, I also brought enough to make the bodice of her ball gown. And now, thanks to my van full of cosplay supplies, I actually have everything I need to do that. So let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see me make Bombshell Mera's ball gown. It is on my to-do list, but at the moment it doesn't have a specific space, so if I can gauge the interest that you guys have in that project, I'll put it onto the list. The next fabric we have is this stuff up the side. I actually found this fabric a week after I got the scale stuff that I used for the front. I found it on the clearance section in Spotlight and just went, oh my god, perfection. The colours matched absolutely perfectly and I loved the gradient effect it had to it. With the sides, I also did try to strategically place the pieces to get the gradient effect that I was looking for. This did mean wasting a small amount of fabric, but considering how happy I am with the finished product, I'd say it's definitely worth it. I also made sure to, well, I'm not sure if you'd call it pattern matching, gradient matching each piece, just to make sure that the two pieces that made up the sides aligned really nicely. And honestly, I was quite proud of myself for this. Also on these side panels here, we have some embroidery. This was actually the first project I'd done on my Genome Memory Craft machine, and as soon as I saw this decorative stitch, I knew I wanted to use it on Mera. My one regret is that I did it in a thread that fades through different shades of the blue-green that the rest of the costume is made from. Because of this, in some places, the effect does rather disappear, and to be honest, I found that a little disappointing. Either side of the decorative stitch, you'll see that there's a line of gold. I really wish that I'd used this gold or a similar one as the decorative stitch to make it stand out just that little bit more. It definitely would have achieved the impact I was looking for much better than the blue-green ended up doing. Having said that, the blue-green does look rather cool in most places. The other thing I did along the edge of the front panels was actually sew a small piece of ribbon into the seams. This ribbon is nothing fancy. In fact, I'm pretty sure the entire roll only cost me $2 New Zealand dollars, and I had quite a lot left of it afterwards. But basically all I did was sandwich it between the seams, stitch it on, and it just created this really nice little poking out effect, which just gives a small but classy detail to the costume. The final detail we need to talk about on the bodysuit is the seashell right at the front. In Mera's original costume, the seashell was pure gold, but I honestly didn't really like that. I really wanted it to be more as if she'd picked the seashell up from the seafloor, rather than a man-made decoration. So I went onto AliExpress and found these little pink shells with a small hole at the top so you can attach them to necklaces. I stitched it on by hand using gold thread, and I have to admit, I was pretty pleased with the effect. Actually, talking about hand stitching, we did miss one thing. Under the arm and on top of the leg, I actually hand stitched some extra elastic onto the costume once the rest of it was finished. This was to help the suit stick to my body better, as I'd found even with the adjustments I had made, it just wasn't sitting on my body right, shall we say. Having completely finished the costume by the time I got to these, I didn't want to have to unpick the entire thing just to add some elastic, so I just hid it on the inside where hopefully no one's ever going to see it. Oh, and actually another thing, this bodysuit actually laces up the back. I've actually lost my good ribbon for this, so I've just put a cheap one on here for now, but this bodysuit does fit me well enough now that the elastic's inserted that I have no need for a modesty panel, though I do have a spare one kicking around somewhere. With this outfit, I actually tried to use the eyelet stitch on my machine. However, they came out pretty 50-50. Some came out absolutely great, while others were so bad I ended up having to go over them by hand. And in the end, I don't think I'm ever going to be that keen to use my eyelet stitch on my machine again. To be honest, I genuinely think that by using the eyelet stitch on my machine, I probably wasted more time on the eyelets than I would have done had I just either hand sewn them by hand or used grommets instead. And finally, we are on to the skirt and belt. Now, technically Mera's skirt and belt aren't actually supposed to be attached to each other. However, with not many materials left to complete this project, I got a little bit creative. I had 1 meter of this crystal white tulle that I got from the scrap end bucket at Spotlight, and then this plastic gold stuff, almost like something you'd put on your table just to keep it clean. This gold kind of looked like scales to me, and I actually really liked that effect and think it goes with the costume pretty well. It's just a shame that it's made of such a plasticky kind of material, which I only figured out I wasn't that keen on again after I'd finished making the costume. There were a lot of lessons learned here. Anyway, I cut the gold plasticky material into a belt shape and then folded the tulle in half, and using a mixture of the gold straight stitch and blue embroideries that I'd used on the bodice, I went to town hemming the skirt. I did actually use a different embroidery around the base of the skirt, opting for a more wave-like pattern rather than the swirls I'd used on the downward seams. Once the skirt was hemmed, I attached the skirt and the belt together and came up with this nice little contraption. It does up at the front using Velcro and is nice and easy to get on and off. However, upon comparing my final product to that of the comic book, I realised that I was missing the M belt buckle that she has. To be honest, I thought long and hard about just leaving the M off the belt completely. It seemed like it was going to be a lot of work to craft it into place, and I wasn't convinced it was going to be worth the effort. However, when looking at the outfit altogether, I just felt like something needed to be at that waist point. It was just too plain otherwise, and it would be nice to have something to do up where the Velcro attached. So I tried attaching a gold M, but when I put it on, you just couldn't see it. The pattern of the gold and the fact that there was nothing around it just made it fade into the background, and not only did it not look good, well, yeah, it just didn't look good. So getting a bit creative with some scraps that I had left over from the sides of the bodysuit, I decided to cut a diamond shape, and bada bing bada boom, this is what we ended up with. I again embroidered the outside of the diamond using a mix of the gold straight stitching and the blue swirls. I inserted some heavy interfacing into the diamond as well, just to make sure that it'd keep its shape. If I were to make this belt and skirt again, I'd definitely make the M and the diamond the M sits on a lot smaller, along with probably using softer fabric for the skirt, as now I've worn it a few times, I just feel this tulle was a bit stiff and doesn't move the way I'd ideally like it to. And now we are on to accessories, and let's start with the biggest one. The hat. Honestly, this is just a random sun hat that I brought from the clearance section of some shop or another. Ben has tried on multiple occasions to bring this hat into my everyday wardrobe, you know, to protect me from the dreaded sunburn. But two things. First is that this hat is actually too big for me and just doesn't sit right on my head. And two, for everyday use, it just looks really silly. And bonus number three is it's horribly uncomfortable. But I'll put up with that for cosplay, just not for my day-to-day. The next thing I normally wear with this outfit are these pearl earrings that were given to me by a family member. Mera does wear pearl earrings in the comic books, but ones that sit on her ears rather than dangle under it. But let's face it, I already took a pretty large artistic license with this outfit, so adjusting the earrings really not a big deal. And the last accessory is an anchor necklace that I got from AliExpress. Unfortunately, along with quite a few of my other cosplay accessories, this one's been packed away for our move, so I can't show it to you today, but just trust me when I say it was really nice. All in all, I was in the end happy with this costume. However, I will say that I think I could 110% make it at least 5 times better if I did it again today. Thinking about this, I actually learned so much while making it though, from fitting a whole body garment, to pattern matching, to colour coordinating, to trying small decorative details that I'd never been brave enough to try before. I definitely have a lot of other Bombshell girls on my list of cosplays to do, Batwoman being near the top, as I already actually have all the materials I need for her. Though, admittedly, those materials are somewhere in my boxes of stuff that are still packed away in the attic. Damn, I hate moving. Just makes everything difficult. And I swear, when I get around to finally opening all my boxes of various fabric and crafting supplies, it is gonna feel like Christmas, because I just can't remember what's in half of them. Anyway guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think of the DC Bombshells, and don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. And if you want to make your own Bombshell style look, don't forget to check out my Etsy shop where I'm currently selling a bunch of vintage patterns. The link will be in the description down below, so please do go check it out. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all my current cosplay projects, and I will see you next Wednesday. Have a beautiful day guys. Bye!